Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, SPAA family. I hope everyone is doing well. It is my actual pleasure to welcome you all to the School of Public Affairs and Administration Annual SPAA Service Day. The Saturday before Thanksgiving, we always host a day and an opportunity to come together to talk about what does it mean to be a public servant. At this particular time, we want to highlight some public servants right here that are exemplary leaders in our community. My name is Sharon Stroy. I am the Director of Public Engagement in the School of Public Affairs and Administration. On behalf of our Dean, Charles Menefield, we want to welcome you all. Today, we're going to hear from some amazing leaders. Leaders that are not just leaders in their title and in their role, but leaders who are doing things as a public servant. Today, the students will hear from these amazing leaders and understand what does it mean to be a public servant. Our moderator for today is Professor Michael Dillard, a SPAA alum and the assistant professor in teaching, as well as the undergraduate program director in SPAA. But before we begin, I would like to briefly read the bios of our panelists today. And please be mindful, what I am reading today is only a short version of all they do and who they are. I would like to start first with Colonel Patrick J. Callahan. Colonel Patrick Callahan was sworn in on October 31st, 2017 as the 14th Colonel of the New Jersey State Police. He has served more than 26 years with the New Jersey State Police. He previously served as Deputy Superintendent of Operations, overseeing nearly 1,800 road troopers assigned to the state police stations throughout the state. Prior to this assignment, Colonel Callahan served as the Deputy Superintendent of Administration. Previous assignments also included him serving as the commanding officer of the Emergency Management Section, as well as the Recovery Bureau Chief in the wake of Superstorm Sandy. In this role, he was responsible with FEMA, all state departments, county and local government entities, as well as the Governor's Office of Recovery and Rebuilding, to administer and oversee the $1.5 billion in FEMA public assistance and hazard mitigation funding awarded to the state. Colonel Callahan has also served as the Chief Financial Officer for the New Jersey State Police, held various assignments in administration section, overseeing budget and fiscal responsibilities, assigned to the Homeland Security, assisted in the planning and distribution of federal Homeland Security awarded to the states and in 21 counties in the wake of 9/11. Colonel Callahan earned a master's degree in administrative science from Fairleigh Dickinson University and his Bachelor of Arts degree from Villanova University. He is a graduate of the 243rd FBI National Academy session, where he was elected session president. Colonel Callahan also served as the chairman of the State Police Retirement System Board. He is married to his high school sweetheart for 31 years, and they have 4 children, Stephen, Cassidy, Ryan, and Carrie Ann. Roger Leone. Roger Leone currently serves as the superintendent of the Newark Public School District, the largest school district in the state of New Jersey. Roger Leone was born in the city of Newark, grew up in the city of Newark, and remains a proud product of the Newark Board of Education. Dedicated 25 years of service to the children in the Newark Public Schools and still lives in the city of Newark. He earned his Bachelor of Science in Biological Sciences from Rutgers University and a Master of Arts Administration and Supervision from Montclair State University. He has remained true to the city of Newark and the impact in lives on and his alma maters. Mr. Leone's vision was set high for educational standards for everyone in every school and provide all of the necessary time and resources to effectuate change across the district. His mission was to improve the lives of our students and their families and strengthen the community. Roger understands the needs of the children in Newark because he has served as a 5th grade teacher, an 8th grade teacher, head coach for the debate team, a middle school principal, a high school principal, served as the assistant superintendent for 10 years, the deputy chief academic officer for curriculum instruction and student services, and directive administrative responsibilities district-wide. Mr. Leone has also worked collaboratively with local agencies, higher education institutions, foundations, public-private partners, community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, elected officials, principals, teachers, staff, advocates, parents, and students. It is with this dedicated level of expertise and experience and commitment to the students in the city of Newark that he was unanimously selected as the superintendent in May 2018. As a resident, student, principal, assistant superintendent, and superintendent in Newark, he has taught thousands and mentors hundreds to the city which he is dedicated. Truly an exemplary leader and a public servant. Our very own LaMonica McIver. Rutgers University Newark is located in the Central Ward, where LaMonica McIver served as the Central Ward councilperson. Born and raised in the Central Ward, a public educator who has spent her life working in the community as a dedicated public servant. She is founder of the Newark Gals, Inc. and founding trustee of the Believe in Newark Foundation. After earning an undergraduate degree in English literature from Bloomfield College and a master's degree in educational leadership and policy from Seton Hall University, she began her professional career as a leader, educator, and an HR professional at a host of public school districts. LaMonica's mission remains unchanged, fighting for the quality of life for all of our residents in the city of Newark. Since finding the love of her community at age 11, she has not stopped serving the community. She serves in whatever capacity needed, and in 2018 was elected as the council member for the Central Ward. She is the youngest woman and council member to serve on the Newark Municipal Council. Last, but definitely not least, Judith Persicelli, a nurse, has a bachelor's degree in nursing, a master's degree, began serving as the acting commissioner of health in August 2019. Prior to leading the department, Ms. Persicelli served as the acting chief executive officer for the University Hospital in Newark. Ms. Persicelli was president emeritus of the CHE Trinity Health, the health ministry formed in May 2013, the consolidation of Catholic Health East and Trinity Health. She previously served as the interim president and CEO of CHE Trinity Health. Prior to this appointment, Ms. Persicelli was the CEO of Catholic Health East. She joined in 2013 as the executive vice president of the Mid-Atlantic Division. She was promoted to executive vice president of acute care for the system in 2018, and then to executive vice president and chief operating officer in December 2009, before assuming the role of CEO. Prior to that, she served for 8 years at St. Francis Medical Center in Trenton. She currently serves along with Colonel Callahan under the leadership of Governor Phil Murphy, especially in the time of the COVID pandemic. These are exemplary leaders. As New Jersey and New York were at the forefront of the COVID-19 pandemic, these leaders put aside their titles, their roles, their degrees to serve as public servants for the city of Newark and the state of New Jersey. It is my absolute pleasure to turn this discussion over to Dr. Michael Dillard, who will lead this panel this morning. Professor Dillard?
Thanks so much, Director Stroy. It's really good to see everyone on this Saturday morning. When we started thinking about this idea of, the weekend before Thanksgiving, what are we going to do as a school to engage our students, to engage our faculty, staff, alum, and their families? It was certainly a challenge. As most of you know, every year, the weekend before Thanksgiving, we would typically volunteer our time over at the community food bank located in Hillside, packing up boxes of food for needy families. And we would have typically over 100 students joining us in this endeavor. And when you think about our school, the School of Public Affairs and Administration, or SPAA as we like to call it, it's all about creating change. It's all about serving the public. And so both myself and Director Stroy, we started thinking about why not have a panel discussion with exemplary leaders in various fields within public administration, whether it's education, whether it's local government, whether it's working in criminal justice or state police, or even in healthcare. Being able to open up your eyes in terms of various opportunities that will be afforded to you upon completion of this degree. Please make sure that everyone is muted during this discussion. And please also make sure to have your camera on. I will be serving as the moderator again. Please make sure that you are muted during the entire time. Karina, thanks. There we go. All right, so just again, making sure that you're muted and that you have your camera on. Today's panel really will have the opportunity to share light in terms of exactly how they got to where they are. What were some of their challenges along the way? To also, more importantly, offer you words of encouragement, because we're all thinking about it, right? What's next for us within our own professional endeavors, especially you as students. So I've come up with 4 questions. I'm asking for each panelist member to be brief in their responses, because we really want to leave enough time for our students to be actively engaged with our panel members. So as we all know, when you start thinking about this important work that we're all doing, in terms of what it means to be a change agent, what it means to serve the public and work with the public and inspiring people, I think it's appropriate to start off by asking with the first question: what does it mean to be a public servant in your area of influence? And how does your work impact the society? Let's start with Councilwoman McIver.
Thank you so much, Professor Dillard, and good morning, good early morning to some of the students who are on. It's good to see you all. I'm happy you have your cameras on. I can see you all. I just want to thank you guys for having me once again. So I'll be really brief. To me, what it means to be a public servant means to be of service to the people. I always say you don't have to be an elected official, even though sometimes you look up the definition of a public servant and it says a government official or someone appointed or elected. But I really feel like each of us have some type of role in being a public servant. It's just like the great quote from Shirley Chisholm says, service is the rent we pay for, living here on this earth. And so it's very important to be of service in whatever capacity you can. And that's how I've always looked at serving the community, which is being of service to the people. And just depends on what lane of service that you're in. And you'll hear that from most of these panelists on here on what lane they're in of serving the people.
Thanks so much, Councilwoman McIver. We'll start now with Colonel Callahan.
Thank you, Doc. I'll echo her remarks. It's really about public service, and being a public service for me, in my perspective, is about simply putting other people before yourself. I think it's in law enforcement. It's not a day goes by or a night goes by. If all the students that are here watching the nightly news, you see what happens when law enforcement and communities have negative encounters. I'm here to tell you there's thousands of positive ones too that don't make the nightly news, but I think we need, as public servants, to make sure that people are protected, their civil rights, their constitutional rights, their health, their well-being, and that's why I got into it. I just thought the concept of putting others before self is a very noble thing. It's a humbling place to be, and I'm honored to serve in this capacity as a trooper.
Thanks so much, Colonel. Let's go on to now Commissioner Persicelli.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, some technical issues here. Thank you so much. You know, when I answer questions like this, I find myself answering questions pre-pandemic and then pandemic and continuing pandemic. Pre-pandemic, I think the bio said that I went to a College of Nursing in New York. I can say that that changed my life. Because what I saw when I went to the College of Nursing in Newark, after I had worked as a registered nurse for a number of years, is that the community really needed some leaders that wanted to put the community first. And that's what public servants do. It's not a search for power. It's really a search for authority to put the community in first. So I became a disciple of Greenleaf and his servant leadership. If you've not read that book, I recommend it if I can, Michael. I think it really sets out, at least for me, a journey that I started after my College of Nursing experience and bringing forth to today, making sure that I encourage a diversity of thought, create a culture of trust, an unselfish mindset, and fostering leadership in others. To me, that's what public service is all about. That's pre-pandemic going into pandemic. The pandemic has challenged, I think, all of the leaders, Colonel Callahan and his team, and all of the leaders within state government to really redefine what being a public servant is. Because every day we have to put the community first and identify what can we do best today to save lives. And I think that's like the biggest definition of public service. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Judith. And last but certainly not least, Superintendent Leone.
Yes, good morning, everybody. And thank you all for joining us today. I wanted to start by thanking the Chancellor for her incredible work. Obviously, the director and the professor for hosting this meeting, and for the three incredible panelists that are on here. You know, before the meeting started, I was talking to them because it was my opportunity to have just a brief moment with them. And our state is safer because of the colonel. Our state is healthier because of the commissioner, and the mayor, our councilwoman of the Central Ward, and myself. You know, we're just working tirelessly to do our very small part in Newark. As the superintendent of schools, I see that my role and responsibility is to be the steward and the shepherd. So it's moving people. So it's not only about being a leader, it's leading and having people follow, being able to understand and assess needs, being able to listen, being able to communicate, and then being able to monitor and adjust, and then communicate, and then listen. It's always about a balancing act of understanding and assessing. So obviously in our school system in Newark, we then create a vision and mission with some key core values. For those of you who attend the school, and I do see that some of you have attended our schools, we have 8,100 employees, 3,100 classroom teachers, and 55,000 students, a little over 55,000 students. So it's also about making sure that everyone in the organization and all of the important people, in particular, our focus point, the kids, are really aware of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and then helping move the agenda of educating the public in the process.
Thanks so much, Superintendent. So as we can see here, it's all about inspiring. It's about, you know, being an inspiration to others. It's not only just about serving the public, but really overall, I think you guys all summed it up perfectly. You know, utilizing your role to affect change, you know, being that change maker, being a change agent, and how do you go about galvanizing and bringing everyone together? But often at times we're also going through this degree program, trying our best to figure out what's the next move for us after we finish the degree. And I know personally myself, I've been there through my undergraduate degree program, through my master's, as well as my doctorate. What are the next steps? So I think it's appropriate to ask today's phenomenal panelists. We have undergraduate and graduate students who are making decisions about their career trajectory. At what point in your education and or your professional journey did you know this was the career for you? So I'll start off with Colonel Callahan.
It's a great question that I've been asked often. I was blessed to have a grandfather who was a Linden police officer for 32 years, and my father was a Jersey trooper for 29 years. So I grew up around men and women that, as I always say about my dad, he didn't tell me how to live, he lived and let me watch him do it. So probably by the time I could walk and talk, I wanted to be a Jersey trooper. You did need a bachelor's degree back then, back in the early 90s when I applied. I got out of Villanova. I was married with 2 small kids, had our third while in my first week in the academy. So I'm blessed to be in a spot that I always wanted. I just wanted to be a Jersey trooper. To be a colonel, the colonel is just a little surreal to me, having grown up in it. But again, I've known since as long as I can remember, Doc.
Thanks so much, Pat. And you know what? It shows in your work. I watch you every day, so I know. And we appreciate everything that you're doing. Let's start that same question with Judith.
I can't remember a time that I never wanted to be a nurse. I always wanted to be a nurse, which was a form of public service in and of itself. And I was an intensive care nurse, so I took care of patients one-on-one, and I think made a big difference in the lives of that one individual that I was taking care of. And then as I moved up in administration, I realized that I could make a difference perhaps in maybe all of the patients in the hospital if I did a better job and really looked at the changes necessary to improve the care that we gave. And then I moved on to system leadership, and I said, well, now I can make a difference in a broader sense for a whole community. And here I am as the Commissioner of Health, not only supporting people on one-to-one every day, but having the opportunity to support the whole state, 9.3 million individuals. And when you find that you have the skills and the talents to perhaps make a difference in the broadest of communities, you find you have a passion for it. So I guess the first message I would give is know what you're passionate about. Because if you're not passionate about public service, don't go into it. But if you're passionate about using your skills and talents to make a difference in the lives of people every single day, if that's your passion, go for it.
Well said, Commissioner. Councilwoman.
So I can say that I never dreamed about being a councilwoman. It's not something I knew from birth that I would be a councilwoman. I think at age 10, I had a great teacher at the time, and it was our wonderful Mayor Rash J. Baraka, who was a English teacher, middle school teacher at Warren Street School. School is knocked down now, but I went to that school. And, we were just kids from the community who, literally was just looking for, something positive to get into, because we were definitely involved in a lot of negative at the time. And he was a young, inspiring, young teacher that we all loved, because he was cool. We all loved young teachers. At least I do. I know I do. And he, was running for office at the time, and we thought it was super cool, but we had no idea what that meant, at that age. And so he kind of taught us about, the civics of government and, what that meant. And, I learned at that time what it really meant to be in government, and not so much just government, but what it really meant to, be of service to people, to love your community, to give back. And so I started volunteering, doing food drives, voter registration, GOTV. I did that because it was very interesting to me, and it gave me really something positive to look forward to, and just the love for my community, which was instilled in me. And those things have to be instilled into young people, at an early age, which is something we're dealing with every day here in the city of Newark. The superintendent knows very well. And so from there, I just always wanted to be of service, like, no matter what it was, rather it was having a nonprofit organization, helping young girls, doing food drives. Those were things that I wanted to do. And so, that's kind of what led me to here when someone said, hey, what about, a elected seat? I'm like, no, I don't think I want to do that. Like, and they're like, well, you already do most of that already. And so, this point would allow you to, make laws and policies that would be able to help the people, at a different level. And so I decided to do it. But for me, it's really just about being able to help folks. I always say to be in public service, you have to have the disease to please. It's my, motto for everything, because I'm telling you, the pleasing, you feel like you're doing a lot of it, but it's never really enough sometimes, but definitely you have to have that, passion and that gut to always do it, because if not, you will be, tired at day one, so it's really, if you're thinking about public service, you really just have to be able to just have that motivation and passion every day, to really want to help as many people as you can help. Continue to try to help the people that, is a struggle to help, but to continue to push on doing it. But it really takes, motivation and passion to keep on, waking up to do it. So, to me, it's a work in progress every day. For me as a public, maybe because I'm a young elected official and I'm really what they call a newbie, still in the first term. But every day it's a work in progress, and you just continue to have that passion and motivation to wake up and do it. And you're here again today.
Well, I must say the newbie is doing a hell of a job, and you're doing great work in the city of Newark. And I'm going to steal that, LaMonica, the disease to please. Because that's really what it's overall about. And last but not least, our superintendent.
Oh yeah, not only is she a great councilwoman, she's an awesome mommy. Her daughter is in one of our schools and is doing such a great job, such a great job. So I was supposed to be a pediatrician. I think I would have been a phenomenal pediatrician. A couple of things happened in college. So one professor, I'm not going to say her name, she walked into a room about 500 Black and Latino students, and she was like, this is Orgo. In order for you to become a doctor, you're going to have to pass this class. And then she looked into the audience and she said, and from the looks of it, you won't. So I was like, okay. So not only did I pass that class, not only did I do well on the MCATs, I don't do rallies. That's not my thing. So I just made sure that the college president knew that she needed to be terminated. And that's what actually happened to her. So my advisor, Ms. Taylor, who's wonderful, oh my goodness, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. She was given additional class loads, and she knew since I was on welfare, that my single mom who didn't speak English, we didn't have any money. She said, do you want to teach a work study course for me? It's actually my class. So I did. And so I arrived to her class. She wasn't there. It was 20 students. There were 30, the assignment was 30 pages they had to read. They had 50 minutes to do it. There was supposed to be a discourse and answer questions. Totally impossible. So what I did is I created 5 teams of 4. I gave them all 4 pages each. By the time she walked in, we were already in discourse. After discourse, they were writing the answers to the questions. They had about maybe 15 minutes left. So she came up to me and she said, how did you learn how to do that? I was like, you gave me an impossible, ridiculous task. That is when I knew that I would be able to create impact by having a different professor in front of students, by actually doing the work. And so becoming a teacher was the reality, and it occurred literally at that moment in time. It was a hard conversation with my mom because she was dead set on telling everyone in her family I was going to be the family doctor. And so it was like, I was like, Ma, I'm going to teach. I'm going to make doctors. I'm going to make lawyers. I'm going to make nurses, make more teachers, and help children realize their dreams. So she's kind of good with it today, but it's kind of rough, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely, we do know what you mean, and very well said. I think one of the things about life itself, it presents many challenges, obstacles. Some would call it trials and tribulations. I like to oftentimes call it detours, to place us in the right direction. So my question for you all today is, success never comes without setbacks. What have you learned about overcoming failures? Let's start off with the commissioner.
I've been working a long time, so I've had a lot of successes, but I've certainly had a lot of failures. And the one thing I've learned about failures, if you're going forward on a course and it's sometimes your idea and you really feel very strongly about it, you have a reluctance to understand or accept that it may not be working. So I've learned pretty quickly, if you're going to fail, don't get so invested that you're going to keep on plugging along and failure is on the horizon and it's going to get worse. Fail fast, move on, and no matter what the failure is, get up the next morning and show up. Because if you don't show up, you'll never be able to progress. And that's the best advice I can give to anyone. Don't let it get you down. Get up the next day and show up.
Well said, Pat.
Thank you. I think for one thing, what failures do, and again, to the commissioner's point, a lot of successes, but a lot of potholes too along the way. Somebody once said that success is a lousy teacher. And I think that's fitting, because I think a lot of times we learn more from our mistakes and our failures than we do from the successes, because we assess, we look back and say, how did I mess this up, or how did I fail this course? And then the things that you needed to do in order to mitigate that. And the other things about failures is that they're humbling. I think as a public servants, you need to be humble. You need to have that humility. We talked about it prior to jumping on here about checking egos at the door. And I think those two things, don't let a failure stop you from, focusing on what you desire to be, to Judy's point, to what you're passionate about. If you enjoy and love what you do, you truly never work another day in your life. It's an old Irish saying. But I do think those two things, make sure you learn from your failures and your pitfalls, and don't be afraid to be humbled by it either. A little humility goes a long way, especially when you're trying to serve others and supply them with their needs. Thank you.
Well said, Colonel. Superintendent.
One of the things that I was excited about, knowing that the panelists were here, I felt like I was going to have people that were like old like me. They're so young. And then I'm looking at the students that are on here. You all look like you belong like in one of my high schools right now. So y'all look really, really young. So if you can remember, when you were probably in elementary school, somebody may have said that you learn from your mistakes. Remember that saying? Somebody may have said that to you. I take a different twist at mistakes than probably a whole lot of other people. Because if you learn from your mistakes, imagine how much learning you would do if you didn't make mistakes. Just think about that. Don't make any mistakes. Don't commit them. Think about it. Be calculated in what you do. Be so confident that all the experiences that you engage in yield the intended outcome. Listen, life is not fair. It is brutal. And some people say you have to go through what you're going through in college to live life. No, good people, you're living life right now, and you can't beat yourselves. You heard already, fail fast. You already heard, be humble. A failure is not going to define who you are. But always remember, it is never about that fall. It is always about that rise. Every experience that you engage in, the good, the bad, and the ones you can't figure out, are all experiences that come. It happens. Don't be afraid of it. Face that challenge. Assume responsibility. and know that whatever it is that you want to do, you're going to be able to overcome it and learn. Always learn from who and what you involve yourself in.
Thanks so much, Superintendent. Councilwoman.
Well, I don't think it's much more to say after each of those responses, but I mean, I just want to reiterate that failure is definitely just a part of life. It's an experience, and definitely learning from those experiences and taking notes. I mean, sometimes people, act like failure is just like the end of the world. Like, how do you really pull it together? Of course, some failures, have deeper wounds, but at the end of the day, they're all just going to be a part of life, each of them, each learning experience. If we didn't have people who were failing before us and failing presently in a time before, we wouldn't really have the right directions to do some of the things that we need to do, in life moving forward. So, you just have to learn from them. Don't let it get you down. Continue to have, faith, focus, and fight in you. I always say have the 3 F's with you in life, and you'll be able to get through any failure and make it through all of your successes too. Because sometimes successes have, they don't always come with 5 shiny stars either. They have some, cuts and some wounds that come with them, and some sacrifices, shall I say, for those successes. But definitely keeping those 3 R's with you: faith, fight, and focus, and you'll be able to get through anything. But definitely a key to all of it is definitely what Pat said about being humble. Like, those failures, they definitely humble you. And for some reason, a lot of folks today in today's world is missing that piece. And definitely those failures will help you become more humble. So those are my pieces to it.
LaMonica, thanks so much. And I think, everyone said it perfectly, including some of the students that were chiming in. And you know what? It's all about that test. And that's what it prepares you, it equips you, it makes you smarter. And it's certainly, before the students got on, we were just talking about a little bit earlier, as the superintendent was, mentioning to everyone about the ego. How do you kind of check your ego at the door? It's not about the salary. Often at times, yeah, it's great to make a nice salary, right? But it's deeper than just essentially the salary or the level of education or the titles that you have. And I know we talk about that in the Leadership for the Service Professions class. You can have the title, but will people actually respect you? And it's not about leading with fear. What humbles you? What checks your ego overall at the door? And for me, it certainly has been a number of mistakes that I've had and setbacks in my own life to say, well, wow, let me kind of reflect on that. Let me think about that for a second. What was the aha moment that came out of it? Oh, wow, maybe I won't do that again. And then sometimes make another mistake, and then you say to yourself, wow, I'm back in that same situation again, but I learned something new from it. And so there's going to always be a test with it. But again, Ja, well said. For the very last question, I'm asking for our panelists to be extremely, extremely brief, because I really want to leave out enough time, or carve out enough time, that is, for the Q&A. And for students that are on, I know some of you might have just logged in. Please make sure your cameras are on and make sure that you are muted. Also, make sure to place your questions in the chat box now that you have for our panelists. As Director Stroy will be viewing those questions, we will have a moderated session with our Director Sharon Stroy to review those questions and to ask those questions to our panelists. So our very last question for our panelists: what advice would you give to students entering the workforce during a pandemic? Because as Judith just talked about it, prior to the pandemic, but now we're currently in the pandemic. And we have a number of students that are graduating either the end of this semester, which in the coming few weeks, some are graduating with their undergraduate or bachelor's degree as of effective next May, and some are completing their master's degree by next May. So what advice would you give to our students? Pat?
I know the commissioner is going to say this: get vaccinated, for one. It's been, the pandemic has been trying for us in law enforcement. I say troopers weren't allowed to work from home, and people didn't stop calling 911 because of the pandemic. I think, I'm sorry, I have a 115-pound blue tick coonhound that is barking at a cat that's up on our back deck. So I'm sorry about that background noise. But I think not be selfish. I think when we put in those measures, whether that was vaccines and testing and facial coverings, that was that was more about protecting those around us than ourselves. That was, that was to be selfless. So entering the workplace, I trust that whether it's private sector, government, public sector, that we've put in measures in order to protect those. So I would just, don't be selfish when you go out there, and those that are graduating and finding yourselves, if you have the ability to work from home and work virtually, great. But there's certainly something about being face to face with folks, regardless of what you're doing. To have meetings virtually for the last almost 2 years was something that we needed to adjust to. But it just don't be selfish. I guess that's my message.
Well said, LaMonica.
So I'll just expand on what Pat said. I think one is to definitely protect yourself, going into the workforce during the pandemic. I mean, it's like no other. Someone entered into the chat to say what was the most challenging thing you've ever dealt with as a public servant other than COVID-19. For me, it's been COVID-19. So I'll go ahead and answer that question. But definitely, protecting yourself first, but, at the same time, going out there and being the best that you can be, entering the workforce. You still, we still have jobs to do. There's still jobs available, many jobs at this particular point. As we hear from companies all the time who said that they're struggling to find, decent talent and things, but at the same time, protecting yourself and then going out there and being the best that you can be and, getting through this time, because we're going to come out of this, we're going to come out of this time and, we'll be back to normal someday. But at the same time, just adjusting and, getting the job done and, excelling for yourselves as well.
Thanks so much, LaMonica. Judith.
I think it's the pandemic has a couple of lessons. If we look at how work took place during the pandemic and still, we're kind of redefining what work means. But underneath it all, whether you're working remotely or hybrid, and I don't, I've stated this before, and we spend a lot of time in our lives at work. Know who you are, know what you seek, know what you're passionate about. And if you have a passionate about helping people and communities, if you have a thirst for knowledge, if you have an understanding of the importance of data and research and a deep understanding of community and a non-judgmental attitude, and if you're full of objectivity and a dose of humility, join the Department of Health. We need public servants that want to use the skills and the talents and the understanding that they have, and join us, because this pandemic will end sometime, but we still have work to do now. And then there will be other issues that we have to confront: opioid addiction, overdose situations. We have a lead crisis in our state. We have an HIV STD outbreaks. All of those things are handled through the public servants at the Department of Health.
I love it, Judith. Know who you are. Know what you stand for. Again, we could talk for hours about it. And Sharon, you're absolutely right. Now I'm wishing that we could be on for like another hour or two, but I won't even go there. So Roger, jump in.
I'm glad that they put me last, because then I don't feel like I have to go so quickly because no one's behind me. So I do apologize for that. So I want to call it for what it is. This has just been crazy. It's crazy. This whole new normal is completely so abnormal. This is the most evil virus. You don't see it coming. And when it shows up, it doesn't allow the ones you love to be around you. In education, we don't like adjusting and changing practices. Things occur, you study it, you do it about 20 years. So what we've learned with this virus is that we've had to make some changes. And sometimes we change back to the things that we stopped doing, and then we adjust, and then we make another change. My recommendation to the folks on this call is get out of whatever comfort zone the virus has placed you in. So I want you to think about this. It's all about an interaction with the public. Extremely, extremely important. So are you talking in your classes? How much public speaking are you doing? What are your human interactions like? Imagine what my problem is. I have 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, kindergartners, and first graders that I have to unteach that sharing is bad. They have been taught for the last 19 months, don't share, don't hug. Good people, don't be afraid to love. Don't be afraid to love. I need you to understand that this is going to pass. We all need to be healthy. So we need to make sure that we're following all of the mitigation strategies that are out there. Get vaccinated, get tested. Please worry about yourself so that you can worry about someone else. But understand this, the time is gonna run out on this virus. How ready will you be for what happens after?
Thanks so much, Roger. Sharon, take it over.
This has been absolutely amazing panel. As you can see, I was making sure I got the highlights in the chat box. But we also have a series of questions. So we have questions that we don't have enough time to answer. So first of all, to the students who submitted questions, thank you. But to the panelists, this is the first one. And thank you, Alina, for submitting this question. How did the COVID-19 pandemic affect your leadership style? Roger, we'll start with you.
Well, obviously, one of the things that I already shared is that in education, we don't like to adjust. So I think I'm a strong communicator, but making sure that I was doing that more and more and more than ever before became important. Trying to communicate and then not make changes immediately. So we've kind of stayed the course for a very long time without doing the what has been expected. Oh, change this day, change that day. So we've stayed the course and really focused everyone by communicating and communicating and communicating.
Councilwoman McIver.
I was really sitting here thinking about that because I feel like it's changed everything about, the way you kind of lead. I guess the one thing for me, I guess it changed for me is being able to, make decisions on the spot, if that makes any sense, being quick with decisions. I mean, usually, when you're in public service, sometimes you have the ability to hash things out, think about it, put things together and, run it through all of the channels. And during the pandemic, we really didn't have time for that. It was sometimes where things were turned around in 24 hours of signing executive orders with the mayor or getting things in place in the next couple of hours. It was really a fast pace and we had to do that very quickly, make decisions very quickly, be literally Johnny on the spot with people are calling you, how do you get help to them? And so literally it was always an emergency perspective, being in a emergency all the time for 20 months, it felt like. And so to me, being able to make quick decisions and the best quick decisions, right? And do that quickly. So for me, that was how that changed my leadership style, not being able to, brainstorm it through and think about it, put a plan together. You just did not have the time for that during COVID.
Commissioner.
I would have to say that every skill that I've learned or perfected over my years of working were just emphasized and amplified during the pandemic. And I guess the most important is to make sure that you can motivate your team, that they were really involved in a very high level event, and they were defining what the rest of New Jersey was going to look like. So it was almost every day telling them, remember, you're not sitting on the sidelines, you're not living through history. You are the people that are making history. You are the people that the textbooks will be written about. So let's do it together. Let's define ourselves by our mission to help New Jerseyans live long, healthy lives, not define ourselves by the pandemic, and confront the biggest challenge that we have had through this was confronting and clarifying misinformation. And that has been the biggest challenge and probably something that I haven't had to deal with in my career until the pandemic hit.
Thank you, Commissioner. You actually answered another question as well. Colonel Callahan.
I would, I think I, like Judy, consider myself a servant leader. I always tell the troopers and the civilians that I work for them. They don't work for me. I think this emphasized, and although a lot of people, we have over 1,200 civilians in the state police, and that people here working from home and thought that that was a gift. That caused a lot of mental anguish. So I think it changed, it directed me to reach out to those folks that were at home, whether that was doing a quick 1-minute video from the State Emergency Operations Center to let our civilian folks that were working from home know how much that we still cared for them. And it underscored that, we thrive when we're together and we have that human touch. And so I think for me as a leader, it made me reach out more to those that were at home, working from home or staying at home or struggling with a sick relative. Because if people don't think you care about them, you're never going to get on the bus, I say. And if you're going to be the one at the helm, you need to let people know that you care about them.
Thank you, Colonel. So this particular question, I'm just going to say, we're running close on time, so I'm just going to direct a question to one particular individual. So, Commissioner, how do you view public service now versus when you started?
That's a great question. I think I did not understand when I started as the Commissioner of Health, the breadth of the services that we offer and the lives that we touch. And looking at it from that lens, some people would consider that a huge burden. I can tell you that during the pandemic, the burden of trying to take care of as many people safely was and is somewhat burdensome. But basically, when you think about the opportunity that we all have in public service to affect the lives of 9.3 million people in New Jersey, it's awesome, it's overwhelming, and it's something that I'll walk away from being so thankful that I've had the opportunity to do it.
Awesome. Councilwoman, you spoke of the importance of finding your passion. How do you balance your passion with wellness?
Ooh, I mean, you asking me that with the health commissioner on the panel today. I'm definitely not probably following all of the right things that I should be doing. For me, wellness is kind of basically, doing what's good for you, like, doing what's good to you. And sometimes that's mental wellness, emotional, spiritual wellness. It's all of those things, linked together. So, finding some time for some spiritual wellness definitely is something that I drive on in this role. And then finding some time too, just to like rest, right? Which to me is the biggest part of wellness. And I'm not getting 5 stars on that either, Judy. So, I don't know. I'm still trying to get the 8 hours that they recommend, but just being able to, rest and learn how to, slow down. Like I saw this quote the other day that it was like, you would never have this time back again of yourself. So slow down and take time to enjoy yourself, to rest. And so I'm really just trying to rest more because I'm on the go all the time. Shout out to my one of my aides who's in this program, Hassan Sabor, who says I do not have any breaks. I just keep going fast all the time. But definitely just taking the time to rest. That's one of my biggest wellness pet peeves, is just trying to rest so that I can get up and do it again and again each day.
And so the last question that I want to ask for all of the panelists, in less than 5 words, what is the favorite part of working in your respective career? Superintendent, we're going to start with you.
I'm counting. I was like, seeing children realize their dreams.
Awesome. Thank you. Colonel.
Ooh, 5 words. It's all about family. And I define family as just about everybody.
Awesome. Commissioner.
seeing the passion in my team.
Awesome. Councilwoman.
I'm with Superintendent, 5 words. Helping residents become successful.
Professor Dillard.
Creating impact and change.
Creating impact and change. So, Professor Dillard, would you like for me to do the closing remarks, or is it you?
No, of course you're going to do Sharon, I want to put it back on you to do the closing remarks, but I'll just say this and then Director Story can jump back in.
Yeah.
Truly, thank you on behalf of Dean Charles Menifil, on behalf of our Chancellor, Nancy Cantor, and just really on behalf of the entire team at Rutgers University Newark. We say thank you for just taking out the time on a Saturday at that, right? On a Saturday morning to join us, to have this important conversation. And the reason why I say it's important because we have so many students, right, that are about to graduate and trying to figure out, does this all make sense? What will it be for me once I finish this degree in public and nonprofit administration, when I finish my master's degree in public administration, or when I finish my PhD in public administration? And of course, yeah, you're going to do phenomenal things. I know it. We're claiming it right now for you. But it's also making sure that you're still at the heart in terms of public service and creating that impact. Or what I like to say is, what will your legacy be when it's all said and done? Thank you also to Professor Granatier. I see you're on as well. And I want to also thank a number of my students over in China. I know it's close to 12 midnight, I believe, but a number of my students from China, from Northeast Normal University, showed up as well. So I thank all of them, including the students here in New Jersey. So take it over, Sharon.
The one thing that we talked about is the importance for the students to hear from them. But I have a request from a student. Valerie, you can open your mic.
Hello. I actually didn't have a request. I just put a thank you to everyone in the panel. And I did a special thank you to Roger Leone at the very beginning because he was my superintendent during my course at Newark Schools, and it was an amazing experience. I got to work with him very much. So yeah, just thank you everybody for being here.
Is there any other students that would like to speak to our panelists to say a thank you? Because it is about you. Okay, I see someone. Your hand is up. Go ahead. There you go, Arlene.
Thank you very much, Professor Stroh, and Dr. Dillard, thank you for this opportunity as well. I'm aware of each one of the panelists' work. During our shutdown, I watched Governor Murphy's updates every day on the COVID situation, and for Councilwoman McIver, I watch a lot of Newark TV, keeping up what's going on in the city, and you're always in the forefront. Thank you for your service. And I'd like to direct my comments to Superintendent Leone. Superintendent Leone, I am a product of the Newark school system. I also graduated vocational and technical high school here in Newark. And this summer in my summer learning internship, I had the opportunity to review the 10-year strategic plan for the Newark Public Schools. It is ambitious, it is comprehensive, and it is focused. I am very pleased with what you are doing with the Newark Public, because it's always going to be near and dear to my heart. It gave me a really good foundation. We had art and music in elementary school. We had gifted and talented programs. We had after-school programs with supplemented education and tremendous amount of field trips. That gave me a foundation. But I came to school early with a love of learning. And that just fed me and fed me and fed me. And now this is my 4th college career. I am doing a career expansion. Oops, excuse me. Sorry. I am doing a career expansion. I founded a nonprofit organization for affordable home ownership development. And it's really, it's, you talked about being in your lane. This is my lane now, because there's a need for dedicated developers of affordable housing to meet this need. So again, thank you for what you're doing with the Newark Public Schools. A few years ago, I had a panel discussion that included Mr. Junius Williams and Mayor Kenneth Gibson, and they talked about how the Newark schools had been so well recognized years before. And it was surprising to me, but it was also uplifting, because I guess even when I was in, it hadn't actually been, as highly esteemed as it had once been. But now with this strategic plan that you're doing, I think you can bring it back to that and even exceed. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Arlene. Thank you all of the students who attended, to our panelists, Superintendent Roger Leone, Colonel Patrick Callahan, Councilwoman LaMonica McIver, and Commissioner Judith Persicelli. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all of your work that you've been doing on the front lines of dealing with an unprecedented global pandemic, as well as the situations and the racial unrest in this country. But here in New Jersey, we are handling our business. To the students, Professor Dillard, everyone, be safe, have a happy Thanksgiving, protect yourself and your loved ones, and we'll all see you soon. Goodbye, everyone. Have a great weekend.